So today we're going to talk about the incredible history of these animals right here, and that's the Texas Longhorn. What most people don't know is that the Texas Longhorn here is America's oldest cow. They come from Spanish origin. They're actually brought over here by none other than Christopher Columbus himself. On his second voyage to America in 1493, he brought the Spanish version of cattle. Now, did they look like this? No. Did they look like this? No. They're a little bit different. They had a lot shorter horns, a little bit smaller. They're actually able to boost up their numbers quite a bit over in the Hispaniola, which is like Santo Domingo, the Caribbean area where they first landed. And a few decades later, they brought those same cattle to Mexico. Now they had a problem with these ones here. They couldn't keep them in. And it's not like just an island to where they're contained to an island. You know, Mexico is part of North America, so they got the whole continent to roam. So that takes us to about the early 1500s. Well, these cows, being on their own in the wild because they just really couldn't contain them, they started to make their way north. And north is Texas. There throughout Texas, Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, the Longhorns were able to boost up their numbers significantly. And their numbers estimated right after the Civil War were 4, 5, 6 million, somewhere in there. You can't really count them. But what happens was that same cattle that came from Spain that Christopher Columbus brought over kind of got separated into two. You had the North American side, and that's what became the Longhorns. And then you had the Mexican side, that became the Currentes. So the Currentes and the Longhorns are really kind of like brother and sister. They came from the same cows. So you fast forward to the end of the Civil War. A lot of the fathers, a lot of the sons went to war and had to leave their cows behind. A lot of the cows got out along with the more wild ones. And because the Longhorns have been wild for what, 500 years now, they are able to develop a little bit differently than the normal cows. Like here's our two Angus Charolais crosses back here. They're very different cows. If you look at Yoli, you can see her horns. That's why they're called Longhorns. Hers are going to get a lot bigger. She's just over a year old, so they're going to get out, 4 feet. They developed these horns because they had to. Why? Because out in the wild, they had to fend for themselves. They had to fight off predators, they had to fight off each other, they had to fight off just about everything. Disease, whatnot. Now, they developed these horns because it's a survival of the fittest, Darwinian type of thing, to where the cows with the longest horns were able to fight off the Lobo wolves. We don't have wolves here in Texas anymore because, one, the ranchers and everything shot them all, made them go extinct, and two, those horns right there. I've been doing a lot of research on the Longhorns, a lot of books, a lot of whatnot, and I've found stories to where ranchers have seen Longhorns have a wolf hanging off the side of their horn, kind of like a kebab. So what happened was that the cows with the longest horns did better off in the wild. So the longer the horns, the better they were, so they can fight off predators. I've even read stories, don't condone this at all, to where people would capture a wild longhorn bull and a grizzly bear, throw them into an arena gladiator style, and see who would win. More often than not, the longhorn bull would win. And that's against a freaking grizzly bear. The Longhorns too, in the stories that I've been reading, were not the friendliest of cows, especially in the wild. Now today, they are probably the most docile of all the cows. Why? Because they know if you try and mess with them, you're gonna get the horns. They know, hey, you can do whatever you want to me. If you get out of hand, I can take you. But in the past, that wasn't so because they were wild, weren't really trained to humans too much. Most of them were born out, in the open range. And it was said that people were more afraid of the longhorn bull than anything else out there, and that's bears, coyotes, wolves, etc. Now, it's pretty crazy how one animal can shape history. Because if it wasn't for the Longhorns being wild and getting out during the Civil War, there would not be cowboys. Because check this out, right after the Civil War, when the Union came back together, there was a high demand for beef back east. It was said that you could buy a cow from a rancher in Texas for $2 and be able to sell it in New York for $15. And that's how the Chisholm Trail developed. If it wasn't for the Longhorn, the city of Fort Worth wouldn't have developed into what it is today. You see, back in the 1860s, back in the 1870s, if you were eating beef, it was most likely Longhorn beef. Why? Because that's what was available. It wasn't until the late 1880s that the more European breeds became popular, such as the Angus, the Charolais, the Herefords. And let me tell you why they became popular. And it had nothing to do with their beef. It had everything to do with their fat. Back in those times, there wasn't electricity, so they used the tallow, which is the fat, to create candles. You see, so a cow was actually worth more for its fat than it was for their beef. The beef was actually just a byproduct of people really needing the fat to make candles. And because the Longhorns developed on their own out in the wild, they really don't carry that much fat on them. So people started making the switch to breeds like the Hereford. But it came with the price, not only for the ranchers in the beginning, but for the Longhorns in the long run. There is a story of a rancher out here in Texas, long time ago. He had a herd of a few hundred Longhorns. He had about 6 Longhorn bulls. He was convinced by his neighbors, hey, go get some Herefords, go get some Herefords. They're bigger, they're beefier, you know, they'll make you more money because, again, they have more fat on them. So that's what he did. He bought 3 Hereford bulls, turned them in with his cows. Before the bulls could even make it to the cows, the Longhorns killed them. Why? Because they didn't want the competition, and 2, these are tough animals. These are tough, mean animals, especially way back when. Now, you know, I can pet them all the time. They're just sweet as can be. They know they're used to humans now, and they're just like, okay, you know, you're small, we're bigger than you, you give us fresh grass, we like you. If we don't like you, we'll take you out. But back to the story. The Longhorns went and sought out these bulls and said, this ain't happening, and killed them almost instantly. The story says it wasn't even close. And because the Longhorns were out in the wild, they're a lot smarter. They can think for themselves. I can see it out here. We have the 2 Angus Charolais crosses, and we have the 11 Longhorns. I can almost see the Longhorns think. They're going, okay, they're more independent. If they want something, they're gonna get it. The Angus Charolais, they're great cows. They're really sweet. I love them. But the Longhorns, you can see them think. They can recognize me faster. It takes a little bit more for them to be trusting, but when they do, you know, I can pet all over them and everything. It's different. You can see them just start computing things. But also how they're smart is how they protect their young. Out in the wild, when they were fending off wolves, coyotes, and God knows what else, what a herd would do was when there was predators in the area, it would gather up its calves, and the mothers would form a circle around them and start swinging their horns back and forth, kind of recreating what the Spartans used to do with their shields in like the 300. And then the bulls of the herd would go and chase off and try and kill whatever's trying to hurt the calves, hurt the moms, hurt whoever. So they worked together as a team, and I can kind of still see it a little bit today. You know, I come out here and move the cows just about every day. And the Longhorns, they know what's going to happen before the other ones do. They pick up on things a lot quicker. You can just see it. You can just see that they're smarter. But now back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. The ranchers and the cattlemen of the day didn't want Longhorns around their English herds, their more European herds. Why? The Longhorns, being out in the wild, they're a lot more resistant and a lot more just hardy. They don't pick up parasites like other cattle breeds. They can fend off a lot more diseases and sicknesses than other breeds. The wild ones actually learned to live with some virus, and when they got close to the other breeds of cattle, they would pass it on to them and wipe out herds at a time. So ranchers really did not like Longhorns way back when they started bringing over the European breeds. And this resulted in almost the complete extinction of the Longhorns because the ranchers would just go out and shoot them. It's really, really pretty sad. Then in 1927, the government actually did something good. Believe it or not, they actually did something good. They decided because the Longhorn has shaped our country so much, it created cowboys, it created the Fort Worth, the Chisholm Trail, that was all after the Longhorns. Abilene, Kansas, and shipping the beef east. That was all because of the Longhorn. Congress decided they needed to stick around. So they created a fund and wrangled up 27 Longhorns, 20 cows, 3 bulls, and 4 calves. And they moved them to Cache, Oklahoma, where they became the national herd. Because believe it or not, there was only a few hundred or a few thousand left. They were just on the brink of extinction. And with good management by the people taking care of that national herd, in 25 years, that herd of 27 grew to over 1,500. And that led to the 2 different Longhorn registration associations. You see, the Longhorns were able to pump up their numbers so fast because unlike other cows, they mature faster. The Longhorn heifers can actually be bred back as early as 9 months old. But today, the Longhorns aren't on the brink of extinction, but their numbers are still pretty few, especially compared to the breeds like the Angus, the Hereford, the Charolais. And now, most people just view these Longhorns as either pets or yard art. Why? Because at the sale barn, compared to the other breeds, they sell for about half of what they do. But what baffles me is we're past the time of needing tallow. We're past the time of candles. We have electricity, which is great. Thank you, Thomas Edison. But we're still in the mindset of raising the biggest, fattest cows. Why? Because that's how ranchers get paid at the sale barn. They get paid X amount of weight per hundredweight. But when you look at Longhorn beef compared to any other beef, it's incredible. It's really incredible. Don't believe me? Go on and Google it for yourself. They have a way lower fat content. They're a lot leaner. They're a lot more nutrient dense. They're just better for you. Pound for pound, they're actually less calories than chicken breast. The only thing that has a higher protein content other than Longhorn is rabbit. But is my prediction over the next, we'll say, 15-20 years, that Longhorn beef is going to get the recognition that it deserves, and consumers will start seeing why this is superior, and in turn ranchers will start seeing, hey, you know what, these are more disease resistant, that they're easy to care for, that they don't have the calving problems that the larger breeds have. And I just really believe that the Longhorn, it went from being the most popular cow to almost going extinct, but now I think over the next, we'll say, 15-20 years, the Longhorn's time will rise again. You see, this is a little bit different of a video that we normally do, but we encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below, ring the notification bell so you get alerted when we put up new videos. Hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm and drop a comment if you like, alright? Until next time, see ya. Bye.